She kept disappearing from her desk, whispering into her phone like she was guarding state secrets. So we followed her and ruined her life. It started like any other Tuesday. Open laptops, iced coffee, the low hum of Slack messages pinging across an open office that looked more like a startup showroom than a law firm. But Marissa was missing again. Her computer was on, her blazer hung neatly on the back of her chair, but her seat, empty, for the third time that day. I glanced at Priya 2 desks down, and she met my look instantly. A shared eye roll. We were both keeping count. This was the 4th week of her vanishing act. Always stepping out. Always whispering into her phone like it was a lifeline. Never telling anyone where she was going. Never offering to make up for lost time. And we noticed. Of course we noticed. We were women in corporate. Of course, we noticed when someone stopped pulling her weight. And yeah, we started talking. At first, it was quiet judgment. She's probably going through something. Then it was curiosity. Do you think she's seeing someone? Then it got sharper. She lied about being in that client meeting last Thursday. That's when it shifted. That's when we shifted. And I'll be honest, it wasn't because we hated her. It was because we didn't understand her. Marissa was polished, quiet, efficient, not particularly warm but not cruel either, just private. Too private. And that doesn't fly in a company that thrives on open-plan exposure and happy-hour oversharing. She was different, and when people are different, the office machine starts trying to normalize them or push them out. Guess which one we chose? The rumors started small. A Slack DM here, a lunch table whisper there. She's definitely cheating. I saw her smiling at her phone. That wasn't work. She's been wearing makeup again. She blocked someone from HR on Instagram. What is she hiding? We weren't trying to hurt her. We were just connecting dots. That's what women do when something doesn't make sense. We try to make it make sense. And the easiest way. Assume the worst. Because if she was having an affair, then our frustration made sense. Then we weren't being petty coworkers, we were whistleblowers. And when Priya, accidentally, walked past Marissa outside the building one afternoon and overheard her say the word hospice, that sealed it. Except Priya misheard. She thought she said Austin. A man's name. So she told the rest of us. That night in our private group chat titled Lunch Bitches, someone wrote, "She's definitely fucking someone named Austin." We all laughed. Reacted with crying emojis. We didn't know. We didn't want to know. A week later, a new client deadline dropped. Big account, big pressure. Everyone was expected to stay late. Everyone except Marissa. At 5:01 she was gone, phone already at her ear before she hit the elevator. And that's when it snapped. Something about her just clocking out while the rest of us stayed under fluorescent lights and takeout boxes. So the next morning, we filed a complaint. Collectively. Professionally worded, anonymous, signed by 4 of us. We said she was inconsistent. We said she was unreliable. We said she had eroded team cohesion. We never used the word affair. We didn't have to. HR heard us loud and clear. The fallout was quiet. She was called into a meeting. Came out pale, expression flat. Packed her bag, no eye contact, no words. Gone in 10 minutes. No dramatic exit. No pushback. Just silence. We watched from our desks, pretending not to. No one said a thing. Until the next day, when her out of office auto-reply went live. It read, "Due to a personal family emergency, I will be on extended leave. I appreciate your understanding during this time." Then someone found her Instagram. Private, but the bio had changed. One line. "Grieving the loss of the love of my life." We all froze. And that was before the email arrived. It came from Diane, Marissa's closest friend in the firm, the only person who hadn't signed the complaint. Subject, you should know the truth. Marissa's husband passed away this morning, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She's been taking calls from hospice, trying to manage full-time care while working 50-hour weeks. She didn't tell anyone, because he made her promise to keep his condition private. She kept that promise. Until yesterday, when you got her fired. I reread it 3 times before I even breathed. My throat closed, my stomach flipped. We didn't just misunderstand her. We didn't just gossip. We destroyed her when she was already breaking. And worst of all, she never even tried to defend herself. Because she was too busy watching her husband die. We thought we were uncovering a scandal. Instead, we orchestrated one. The email from Diane hit like a freight train. No one replied at first. Not a single reaction in Slack. Our usually buzzing group chat was frozen in ghost mode. And in the office, you could hear the sound of keys being tapped like they were landmines. Guilt has a strange way of making even noisy people go silent. But the silence didn't last long. Within hours, someone screenshotted Diane's email and sent it to HR. Then came the official follow-up. In light of new information regarding Marissa L., we're investigating the circumstances around her recent departure. Too little, too late. We'd already filed the complaint, we'd already signed it. We'd already nudged her off the edge of her own grief. And now we were scrambling to justify it to ourselves. I didn't know, Priya whispered to me at lunch, hands trembling over her soup container. She didn't tell anyone. Yeah, I muttered, how were we supposed to know? It was the question we all clung to. Like a shield. But deep down, I already knew the answer. We never asked. We didn't want to know. Not really. Because knowing would have ruined the story we'd already told ourselves, that Marissa was being selfish, that we were right to act, that we were protecting the team. It's easier to believe someone's the villain than to face the possibility that we've become one ourselves. After Diane's email, the picture started filling in. Apparently, Marissa had been caring for her husband at home. Chemo side effects. Late-night fevers. Doctors who gave more timelines than hope. And all the while, she kept showing up. Never missed a deadline. Never once broke down at her desk. She just held it all in. And while she held her world together, we were whispering about lipstick shades and cheating energy. I remembered that day Priya said she saw her smiling at her phone. What if she was reading a final, "I love you" from him? What if that was the last time she ever saw him smile? God. My stomach turned. I kept replaying it all. The complaint. The gossip. The time I laughed too hard at that stupid Austin joke. Was I always this careless? Was I always this cruel? Or was it something about office culture that made cruelty feel like collegiality? Because it had felt bonding at the time. Like we were just venting. But now, all I could see was a group of women punishing another woman for not sharing her pain on our terms. We didn't ask how she was doing. We demanded that she perform being fine. And when she didn't do that well enough, we punished her for it. I couldn't stop thinking about her last day. The way she walked out so quietly. Not a single tear. Not a single glance back. Like she already knew we were never worth her fight. Because maybe she knew. That we weren't angry about her disappearing. We were angry that she didn't let us in. We mistook her privacy for pride. Her strength for selfishness. And her silence for guilt. But the truth, she was just protecting something we never saw. A dying man and her dignity. That Friday, I sat down to write her a message. I didn't know what I'd say. No words felt big enough. Nothing could undo what we did. But I had to try. So I opened my email, typed her name, drafted the subject line. I'm so sorry. And then, I froze. What if she didn't want to hear from me? What if my name just brought her more pain? What if, worse, my apology was only to make myself feel better? I stared at the blinking cursor for 10 full minutes. Then I closed the tab. And cried. In the following weeks, HR issued a formal statement. They didn't name us. Didn't blame us. But they made it clear, Marissa's departure had been a mistake. One based on miscommunication and assumptions. That phrase clung to me like a rash. Assumptions. Is that all it takes to ruin someone? The company tried to make it right. They offered to reinstate her position. But Marissa declined. She moved away. Left the city. Started fresh. Diane said she was still grieving, but doing okay. She'd taken a role with a nonprofit in hospice advocacy, said she wanted to help families feel seen. That word hit me hard. Seen. That's all she needed from us. And we never gave it. But I see her now. Too late, maybe. But fully. And that's the beginning of my own reckoning. Because what we did, it wasn't just a mistake. It was a lesson. A brutal, unerasable lesson about judgment, silence, and what happens when empathy takes a coffee break. We weren't just wrong, we were loud about it, and now the silence is louder than ever. After the HR statement, things shifted. Not in a clean, redemptive Hollywood way, but in that murky, awkward office limbo way, where nobody knows whether to apologize or pretend nothing happened. The four of us, me, Priya, Leanne, and Danny, became radioactive. No one said anything to us, but everything around us felt different. Conversations paused when we walked into the kitchen. People answered our slacks a little slower. And Diane, she didn't even make eye contact. It was like we'd been demoted in a way that wasn't official, but fully effective. And honestly, we deserved it. But knowing that didn't make showing up easier. I found myself overperforming to compensate. Volunteering for every new task. Staying late. Pretending I wasn't unraveling inside. The guilt had become a second job, one with no vacation, no compensation, and zero upward mobility. I thought maybe time would smooth it over. But instead, time just peeled the scab. Because people remembered. And so did I. About a month later, Priya pulled me into a conference room during lunch. She looked wrecked, dark circles under her eyes, hair tied in a messy bun she clearly hadn't planned. I can't stop dreaming about her, she said. I didn't ask who she meant. I knew. She was taking care of him while we were God, laughing about lipstick and men named Austin. I nodded. There was nothing to say that could make it okay. But Priya wasn't done. I want to say sorry, really say it, not just silently suffer in my guilt. She pulled out a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten card. Simple but heartfelt. I blinked, surprised. Do you think she'd read it? She asked. I didn't know. But I hope so. That night, I wrote my own. I told her the truth. That I had assumed the worst of her because it made my own life easier. That my insecurity masked itself as moral superiority. That I was sorry, not just for what I did, but for the relief I initially felt when she was gone. And then I mailed it. No reply ever came. But it wasn't about that anymore. It was about facing the version of myself I didn't want to be and writing her out of my future. Meanwhile, Diane quietly left the company. No goodbye post. No party. Just an email saying she was pursuing a new opportunity. And then she was gone. HR didn't replace Marissa's role for another 3 months. No one filled her desk. It just sat there, empty chair, silent monitor, blazer still on the hook. Like a tombstone. And it haunted us. Every time I walked past it, I felt the weight of our collective failure. And that's when I started asking the harder questions. Not about her. About us. Why were we so quick to assume she was hiding something ugly? Why were we more comfortable imagining her as a mistress than as a wife losing her husband? Why did emotional distance equal suspicion instead of struggle? And the scariest one, would we do it again if the details changed but the feeling was the same? Because if I'm honest, we didn't act out of certainty. We acted out of discomfort. She made us feel uncertain, excluded, maybe even inferior. And instead of owning that, we punished her for it. One day, I stayed late in the office to finish a pitch deck. The cleaning crew came in. As I packed up, I noticed someone had finally removed Marissa's nameplate. Just an empty desk now. It hit me in that moment how final it was. How easily someone can be erased, just like that. Because we didn't understand her. Because she didn't play the role we expected her to. Because we failed to choose compassion over control. That weekend, I went to a grief counselor. Not because I'd lost a husband, but because I'd helped someone lose everything else. Her dignity, her career, her privacy. And I couldn't carry that anymore without doing something about it. So I began unpacking my own patterns, how quick I was to judge, how easily I chose groupthink over grace, how my own wounds made me cruel. And little by little, I started to heal. But not forget. Never forget. Because some things shouldn't be forgotten. They should be learned. We thought she was sneaking around. We didn't realize we were the ones being watched. 3 months after Marissa's departure, our team got a visit from the VP of Operations. Unusual. He never came down to our floor unless something big was happening. He walked in with a folder under his arm, and that blank, HR-adjacent expression people wear when they've practiced what they're about to say. Team, he began, standing where Marissa's desk used to be, I want to talk about accountability. Oh God. I felt the tension spike through the room like a ripple. He flipped open the folder. We recently concluded a full review of the internal complaint that led to Marissa L's termination. That word, termination. Not resignation. Not departure. Termination. I could see Priya stiffen in her chair. During this review, he continued, we uncovered several Slack message exports and internal emails that indicate a pattern of coordinated character judgments, including derogatory nicknames and presumptive narratives. He paused. I felt the breath catch in my chest. They had our messages. Not just the formal complaint. The group chat. The lunch bitches. The jokes. The emojis. The passive-aggressive gifs. Everything. Suddenly, our venting didn't look like frustration anymore. It looked like harassment. The kind that gets printed and stapled into permanent HR files. We also noted, he added, glancing at the folder again, that no efforts were made by any party to inquire about Marissa's well-being or offer support before filing the complaint. That's not just unfortunate, it's a cultural red flag. And there it was. The real reason he was here. This wasn't just about us. It was about the entire company's reflection. A toxic culture doesn't happen in silence. It thrives when gossip masquerades as intuition. When accountability feels optional. And now it was catching up. After the VP left, HR followed up. Private meetings. Written warnings. Mandatory sensitivity training. And one final blow. Our annual bonuses were suspended. Not delayed. Suspended. Pending culture remediation, the email said. We sat in stunned silence. Danny cried quietly at her desk. Leanne logged off Slack and didn't come back for 2 days. Even Priya looked shattered. Do you think she knows? She whispered. Marissa. Maybe. Or maybe she'd finally found peace in a world without people like us in her proximity. Later that evening, I stayed behind again. I couldn't sit in my apartment with the weight of it all. I opened my email. Searched Marissa. Scrolled through threads. One stuck out. It was dated 2 months before she left. Subject line, Ray, afternoon meeting conflict. She'd written, apologies for the delay, we'll need to shift to virtual again. Thank you for your patience during this time. I'm balancing an intensive home care schedule, and I appreciate your flexibility. I'd seen it back then. Marked it as annoying. Now, I read it like scripture. She was telling us. Softly, carefully, respectfully. We just didn't listen. The next morning, I brought in coffee for Diane's old assistant. She raised an eyebrow. Peace offering, she asked. Accountability, I said. She nodded slowly, then you'll need a lot more coffee. We both laughed, and then sat in that quiet moment. Sometimes the only way to rebuild anything, respect, reputation, humanity, is one awkward, vulnerable step at a time. HR's cultural reset started slowly. Open discussions. Anonymous surveys. Real conversations. They even changed our Wellness Friday from yoga Zooms to mandatory empathy training. Ironically, we started actually talking to each other, for real this time. Sharing stories. Admitting burnout. Asking how are you, and meaning it. Because no one wanted to be part of another Marissa story. Especially not from the wrong side. But none of that brought her back. Her desk was eventually cleared. Her nameplate removed. A new intern assigned to the space. Still, every time I walked by, I remembered. Not just what we did, but what we missed. A chance to be better. Kinder. More human. And I vowed never again. The worst part wasn't what we did. It was how many chances we had to stop and didn't. By the 5th week of culture remediation, the office had turned into something colder than before. Not because HR wanted it that way. No, they were trying, painfully so. But the truth was, nobody trusted anyone anymore. The illusion of camaraderie, gone. Our little group, me, Priya, Leanne, Danny, wasn't a clique anymore. We were infamous. Not explicitly exiled, but something worse, pitied. People passed us in the hallway with that tight-lipped look usually reserved for someone who just lost a lawsuit. We weren't monsters, not in the way TV makes you think villains should look. But we were disappointing. The kind of people others warn new hires about. The ones who should have known better. Danny quit first. She didn't even give 2 weeks. Just said she needed space and left the same day HR sent out the new behavioral guidelines. Then Leanne transferred to the accounts department on another floor, effectively disappearing from our lives entirely. Priya and I stayed. But we weren't us anymore. Just 2 women who shared a scar. One Friday morning, I got a package. No return address. Inside, a single piece of paper. A printed photo. From our Lunch Bitches group chat. It was the meme we shared of a woman holding a phone behind her back, captioned, "How side chicks clock out early." Below it, someone had scribbled in red Sharpie. "You thought this was funny, I thought he was dying." No signature, no explanation. But I knew. And I sat there staring at it, hands shaking, heart racing. Because she knew. Marissa saw everything. Whether it was through Diane, through HR, or through someone else, she saw what we really thought of her. Not just the complaint, but the cruelty, the jokes, the self-righteousness, the complete lack of empathy dressed up as professionalism. And I couldn't breathe. I couldn't work that day. I walked. Just walked for miles. Ended up sitting on a park bench, staring at a mom pushing a stroller. Her toddler was kicking his feet wildly, giggling like he was flying. I thought about Marissa. About how she'd probably dreamed of a family like that once. About how she'd sat in sterile rooms beside beeping machines while we whined about calendar etiquette and team spirit. About how alone she must have felt. Not just in grief, but in silence. Silence she chose to protect her husband. And we punished her for that too. That weekend, I opened a blank Google Doc. Title, The Marissa Memo. I didn't know what I was writing yet. I just knew I needed to put it somewhere. Not the sanitized version HR wanted. Not the lessons learned, checkboxes they handed out like mints. But the real version. I wrote everything. The assumptions, the group chat, the jokes, the fact that we were all so desperate to feel important in an office that made us feel disposable, we latched onto her mystery like it was prey. I wrote that we destroyed someone who was already grieving. And that the worst part was, we liked it. It gave us purpose. It gave us power. And we never stopped to ask if it was true. When I finished, I printed the memo. 3 pages, double-spaced, no names redacted. I brought it into HR on Monday. Slid it across the desk. "This is for your training materials," I said. The HR manager blinked. "What is it?" "Truth," I said, "unedited." She flipped to the second page, then back to the front. Her expression darkened. "You understand what this means?" "I do." And I left. I didn't care what they did with it. I just didn't want it buried. Because the most dangerous thing about what we did wasn't the act. It was how easy it was. How ordinary. Like gossip by the printer. Like judgment dressed up as concern. Like telling yourself you're looking out for the team when you're really just avoiding your own reflection. We weren't just wrong. We became the very people we thought we were protecting ourselves from. After submitting the Marissa memo, I didn't expect anything to change. I honestly thought HR would file it away, never speak of it again, and continue issuing soft penalties dressed up as training modules. But 2 weeks later, I got a meeting request. Subject: cultural impact response, internal review follow-up. The invite list was surprising. Me, Priya, Diane, and a name I hadn't seen in months, Marissa L. I stared at it like it was a ghost. Surely not. Surely she wouldn't come back, not to us. Not after what we'd done. But the time and date were set. And so, with my pulse hammering, I walked into that conference room at 2:03 p.m. on a Tuesday. And there she was. Hair shorter, eyes tired but not broken, wearing a simple gray sweater and no makeup, holding a manila folder in one hand and a small water bottle in the other. Marissa. In the flesh. She didn't look at me. Didn't look at Priya. She sat down, unfolded a page, and began reading. My husband, Thomas, was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer 11 months before his death. He made me promise to protect his privacy, to let him pass with dignity, not pity. I honored that. I worked full-time while caring for him during chemo, radiation, and palliative care. I handled medications, I changed linens, I listened to him cry at 2 a.m. I left meetings early to manage hospice visits. I missed happy hours to change feeding tubes. And every time I smiled at work, I was pretending. Every time I left quietly, I was holding back a scream. I wasn't unprofessional. I was in mourning before the death even came. And when I needed compassion most, I got a complaint. She paused, glanced up once briefly, and not at me. Then continued. I'm not here for revenge. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here to say this: you can't fix what you won't name. Gossip, assumptions, misogyny dressed up as mentorship. You called me a mystery. What I was grieving. And I will never forget how easily I was turned into a problem to be removed. Silence. I couldn't breathe. Neither could Priya. Marissa folded the paper. Set it down. And for the first time, she looked straight at me. I read your memo, she said, voice low but steady. My throat burned. I wrote it because I needed to tell the truth, I whispered, even if it made me the villain. You weren't the only one, she replied, but you were loudest. I nodded. That hurt more than I thought it would. But she wasn't finished. I'm consulting with the company now, she said, glancing at Diane. Helping build internal empathy standards, mandatory reviews for all non-performance-based complaints. She looked back at me. At least something good came from all the bad. And then, with no drama, no mic drop, no moral posturing, she stood. Walked out. No tears. Just quiet. Like closure on her terms. After she left, Diane cleared her throat. She didn't want your jobs, she said. She just wanted it to mean something. And somehow, that made it worse. Because she'd had every right to destroy us. To post screenshots. To go viral. To burn it all down. But she didn't. She chose reform. We chose destruction. And we'll carry that contrast for the rest of our careers. Maybe our lives. In the days that followed, the memo was shared across departments. HR began rewriting protocols. Leadership started booking anonymous empathy interviews. But it was too late for Marissa. And too late for the version of me that had once believed I was the good kind of coworker. Now I knew better. Now I watched better. Now I asked before I assumed. Because one woman's silence turned out to be louder than all our noise. She left, we stayed, and every day since I've asked myself which of us really won. It's been over a year since Marissa walked out of that conference room for the last time. Since then we've had new hires, new team members, new HR policies. The office looks brighter now. Colder maybe, but brighter. Her name doesn't come up anymore. At least not out loud. But every now and then, someone says something. About someone leaving early. Or about someone going quiet. Or about someone acting off. And I feel my body tense. Because I remember. I remember exactly how it starts. With curiosity. Then suspicion. Then judgment disguised as camaraderie. That's the thing about moral failure. It never arrives as a villain. It arrives as a team joke. A shared eye roll. An after-lunch whisper that becomes a consensus. And unless someone stops it, it becomes a story. But not the story. Just the one that's easier to believe. The real story. That takes work. That takes asking. That takes the humility to say, I don't know what she's going through, but I know what I'd want if it were me. And we didn't do that. Not once. I replay it in my head sometimes. The moment we could have asked, Hey Marissa, are you okay? Just that. 7 words. They would have cost us nothing. And saved her everything. I keep a copy of the Marissa memo on my home desk. Not because I'm proud of it, but because it reminds me of what pride costs. I read it every time I feel the itch to fill in blanks about someone else's life. It reminds me that being right is not the same as being kind. And being kind is not always comfortable. But it's necessary. Especially in the places where people think professionalism excuses indifference. Marissa's story changed how I exist in every space now. Not just work. At the pharmacy, when someone's short with the cashier. At the playground, when a mom looks checked out. In the elevator, when someone avoids eye contact. I ask myself, what's the story I want to believe? Versus, what's the truth I'll never know unless I ask? And if I can't ask, then I stay silent. Because silence from humility is very different from silence born of assumption. I reached out to Marissa once more. 6 months after that meeting. I didn't expect her to reply. I just wrote, You didn't owe us grace, but you gave it. I'm trying to be someone who deserved it. She didn't answer, but I saw that she read it. That was enough. Because closure isn't something someone hands you. It's something you choose to make out of the pieces you shattered yourself. I don't know if she forgave us. I don't think forgiveness was ever the point. What she gave us was clarity. And clarity is a far more brutal teacher. Because it doesn't excuse. It exposes. To this day, I carry that lesson like a scar. We thought we were defending workplace standards. What we really did was punish someone for grieving inconveniently. We called it accountability. But it was cruelty in a business casual cardigan. And I will never again confuse the two. Title, we thought she was hiding an affair. Turns out, her husband was dying and we got her fired. Tagline, you never know the full story until you ruin it. Subscribe to my Mia's Stories YouTube channel for raw, emotional stories and authentic insights that encourage healing, growth, and understanding. Don't forget to be part of a supportive space where stories inspire and lessons resonate. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments. Your opinion truly matters to us, and we're here for you.